Today I'll be going through reciprocal functions. Alright, so there's two dot points I want you to keep in mind, and that is when f of x is equal to 0, that is an asymptote for the reciprocal function. More specifically, a vertical asymptote. And when the original function approaches 0, the reciprocal function will approach infinity, vice versa. And I'll show you how that works. Alright, so let's say we have to draw the reciprocal of this, right? Now, if you look at the first dot point, here it says when there's a 0, that's a vertical asymptote. And yes, there is indeed a 0, right? It's right there. And so that means we have a vertical asymptote here, right on the y-axis. Okay? Now, let's focus on the second dot point, where it says if the original function approaches 0, then the reciprocal function approaches infinity. So what that means, right, is I'm just going to put a point here. And you see where I'm going with this. But any of these values, right, are going to be approaching 0. So let's say from this point downwards, right, we are approaching 0. Okay? And so that means the reciprocal function approaches infinity. And so what's going to happen is we're going to have something like this. Alright? And vice versa. So if the original function goes up, then the reciprocal function goes down. Okay? And same thing with here, right? So you notice from this point onwards, right? When it approaches 0, it's gonna go more down, like that. And then as we go from this way, right? It's gonna be, whoops. It will approach 0. Alright, so now we have this function that we want to sketch the reciprocal of. So, same thing. The first dot point says if there's any zeros, they're vertical asymptotes. So right here. Okay, so here we have another dot point as well. The minimum at the original function will be the maximum of the reciprocal and vice versa. So what that means, right, is this thing right here, okay, will be a new minimum for the reciprocal function. And you notice that that is minus 4. So the reciprocal of that is just minus quarter, which would be very close to here. Okay? Actually, I'll write this in green for reciprocal. And so what you notice, right, is that from the minimum to this direction, it is approaching 0. And so what that's going to look like is this. And a similar pattern happens here, right? It's going to be approaching 0. And so that's going to look like this. So we've covered one region. There's 2 more regions left. And it's this one and this one. Okay? Now let's just put an arbitrary point here. Okay? And so from this region, right, it's going towards 0. And so what that's going to look like is this. Same thing with here, okay, because they're symmetrical. And then you should know that when we go in this direction, okay, it should approach 0. And the same thing occurs here. Alright, now keep in mind, alright, the best way to get better at this is to practice. Alright, because there's a lot of cases that you're going to run into for these reciprocal functions. But Most of these follow the same principles of these three. Okay, there are more, and I'll probably put a list right at the end of this video. But yeah, that's it for reciprocal functions.